Hi guys, and welcome back to Scriberly. Today I'm talking about 6 ways in which you can improve your CV. Why do we want to do that? Why can't you just have a basic CV and send it off to everyone? Well, the better your CV, the higher your chances that it's going to get noticed, the higher your chances of getting an interview. The first thing to recognize with a CV is, what's the use of a CV? Well, the CV is there to get you through the door. What you want to do is get you in front of the interviewers, get you in front of your potential employer, so that you can show them how great you are, either in person or over Zoom or over any kind of video chat. So your CV is your way through the door. So you need to make your CV as good as possible to make sure that you have the best chance of getting in front of that person for an interview, so that you can hopefully get your dream job. So as I said, here's 6 different CV tips to help improve your CV. So tip number 1, include a personal summary. Now, this might not be relevant if you're super senior, or maybe you know the person that you're going to interview for, or maybe they already know a little bit about you. But for 95% of jobs, a personal summary in a CV can make the world a difference. It's the only place in your CV where you can talk about who you are as a person, including your ambitions. So it's a really great way of showing or telling the employer what it is that you actually want, what it is that you're actually looking for, what your ambitions are. And it's also a really great way to summarize how you see yourself as a professional, especially if the job that you're currently in isn't exactly what you want to do, which is most people, let's be honest, because if you're looking for a new job, then you're probably not happy with the one that you have. So a personal summary is a really great way to show people how you see yourself as a professional and what it is that you're looking for. There's nowhere else on the CV where you can do that. Now, obviously, you can do that in a cover letter, but firstly, not all jobs require a cover letter. And secondly, they can be really long-winded and really long. So the personal summary is a really crucial way to tell the potential employer what it is that you're looking for, how you see yourself as a professional in a really short and easy to consume way. Tip number 2, declutter your CV. I often tell people when they're looking to look at multiple different jobs to create multiple different CVs, which we will come to in a minute. But what I always advise people to do is to create a long form one. Create one with everything that you think you could possibly need on there, and then to strip it back for either individual jobs or to just strip it back in general. We've all heard that statistic that recruiters only look at your CV for 5 seconds, some say 10 seconds, some say 20 seconds. The truth is that recruiters / hiring managers, or whoever they are, they're going to get, let's say, 10, 20, 50, 100 applicants. When I was recently interviewing for my company, we had 180 applicants for one job. So your CV 100% needs to stand out, and it needs to be quick and to the point. See, what you don't want on there is stuff that isn't relevant, okay? So, for example, if you've been working for a little while, they don't need to know what qualifications you got when you were in secondary school or in high school. If you're looking for a really specific type of field, maybe in a white-collar industry, they don't need to know what you did in your cafe job when you were a teenager. So think about what's relevant to the jobs that you're applying for, and then declutter your CV so that it only highlights the stuff that's super important or super useful. Tip number 3. As I mentioned, create multiple CVs. Different industries, different companies, different types of jobs will require different things or want to see different things on your CV. So if you have a one-size-fits-all CV, it's just not going to fit any of them. So the best thing that you can do is create multiple CVs. Maybe you're applying for a role in tech, maybe you're applying for a role in arts. they're going to require different things, they're going to require different skills, they're going to want to hear about different experience. So take some time to think about what the potential employers will want to see, what they'll want to read, and create maybe 3, 4, 5 different versions of your CV. Also, top tip, you can go to Scriberly and do that in a matter of minutes. And also create multiple cover letters in a matter of minutes. But regardless of whether you do it yourself or through Scriberly, which would be a lot more efficient, a lot quicker, make sure you have multiple CVs when you're doing a broad market search. What tip are we on? I don't know. Are we on 4? I think we're on 4. Anyone know what tip we're on?
So bad.
That's tip number 4. I think it's tip number 4. Hobbies and interests. Include them. Now, I know earlier in this conversation I said declutter your CV. Make sure that you're taking out anything that isn't irrelevant. So you might think that taking out your hobbies and interests, which obviously aren't directly or may not necessarily be directly related to your professional life, would be a good idea. But this is a really important exception to that rule. Firstly, it can be a really, really great way to connect with your interviewer. So I know a guy, a good friend of mine, who got his job because he put down on his CV that he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. The person interviewing him was also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. They had an hour-long interview and they spent 55 of those minutes talking about jiu-jitsu, and that's how he got the job. So being able to connect with those people on a personal basis is super important. You obviously don't know much about the person interviewing you. You might be able to find their LinkedIn, you might be able to find out a little bit about them, but at the end of the day, you can't find out anything about them. But you can tell them everything about you, and then that can be ways that you can connect during an interview. It also just broadens out who you are as a person. You know, we're far more than our jobs, we're far more than our careers. So it tells them a little bit about who you are outside of work and who you are as a human being. Lastly, and we've talked about this in other content that we've shot, but it can be really, really useful when you do join that company to have different people within the company that have similar interests to you, and they can help connect you to those individuals. So say that you're really into, let's say, water polo. Not many people are, but let's say that you are. There may be someone else in the company that's into water polo, or into reading, or into photography, or into football, or into motorsports. And it can be a really easy way to connect with people in the company, which can make your first couple of days and your first couple of weeks so much more easy. Tip number 5, skills. Now, that's not me just saying include your skills. What I'm saying is make sure that you have a good think about the skills that you have and what is relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. Now, obviously for certain industries, this is going to be far more relevant, right? So if you are in tech, then you want to maybe highlight, for example, that you know C++ or you know Java or different software development tools. If you are in, say, for example, the care industry, you might want to talk about different non-traditional qualifications that you've received in different forms of different care, or the fact that you know CPR, etc., or that you know multiple different languages. It's really important to think about the skills that you have and what is relevant to the job. Now, I would say that unless you're brand new to the working life, I would try and avoid too many soft skills like punctual or team player or hardworking, because, you know, if you've been working for 10 years, then a lot of those are just kind of givens or things that you should have depending on your industry. But certainly if you're new to the job market, then, you know, mention some of the soft skills that you pride yourself on. Maybe mention some of the other skills that you've gained during your education. But the skills are a really great way to show your employer what you can do, what skills that you have that are outside of your traditional education, for example, your college or your university. And tip number 6 is be mindful of the experience that you're highlighting for each job, which is a really terrible slogan / catchphrase for the experience section. What I mean by this is that it is not always your most recent experience that is relevant. So you want to highlight the experience that is most relevant. So often, as you may well know, you probably want to have more bullet points, talk a little bit more about your current experience and then less about your previous jobs, because people are more interested in what you're doing right now than what you've done before. However, this is a really great tip. Another thing that you can do is, say you're in an opportunity, say you're in a job right now that is outside of what you want to do, but you previously had done a job in the industry that you're looking to go back into. Make sure you really emphasize that experience by putting in more content into the experience of the job where you were doing the kind of job that you were looking to do now. Sorry, this is getting a tad confusing, I know, but this can be a really great way to show that your employer is that, hey, this is what I'm doing now, but this is what I want to do later. What I did previously is what I want to do now. So think about the relevance of each job experience that you have to what you're looking to do, and the more relevant it is, the more content that you should add, and the less relevant it is, the less content you can add. And as I say, it can be a really, really great way to just highlight the kind of things that you're looking to do and the experience that you have in that field. So those are my top 6 tips. Rewind, have a look again. We're going to post some shorts to make sure this is a little bit more consumable. Drop a comment if you have any questions. But as always, like, follow, and share anytime, anywhere, Scriberly.